Hi, Hengist here from House of Hengist Comics, and a big welcome back to the channel. Today we return to Norway and our series Norway in Flames. This episode is entitled An Embarrassment of Riches. This is the second game in our campaign series. Niall Cherry's work Doomed Before We Start is an extremely good read, and taking an overlook at the maps, where we're really looking at today is Namsos and Andelsnes, and that's what this is a replication of, which sort of follows on with the campaign moves that have taken place. A big part of our research and what we've began to discover is obviously the important role of the Navy, but more importantly for the Germans, it was the Air Force that was a hugely powerful arm. As the Allied forces land, they were pretty much at overstretch in terms of air support, and although the Royal Navy outgunned the German Navy, the capture of various early airfields by the Germans, such as at Sola Airfield, became critically important. The reason for that was that it sort of gave them parity, if not an advantage, against the British fleet, because they managed to sort of start to attack with their Ju-87s and 88 bombers. So today we're looking at Andelsnes, and we're going to be basically doing a bombing run which takes place against some static targets, and there's also some moving targets. There'll be a lot of events taking place, but for the Germans it's about doing as much destruction as possible. The British have got anti-aircraft assets, a Bofors gun, and basically they have a company moving out, basically, which is at the march when the attack takes place. So the Allies have got to deal with a number of things. Now, the British forces are pretty limited. They've managed to got an anti-aircraft sloop, which the Enterprise, and they've also got a ferry battle, which will be coming on in the reserve phase. The Norwegians, well, they haven't got a lot. They've obviously got their infamous one of their 12 Gloucester Gladiators, which we've managed to get hold of from Mark I models, and the Germans are flying in with effectively 2 Ju-88s and an Me-110. So what are the mission objectives today? Well, effectively the Germans will win the game if they manage to sink over 2 ships in this action, and they get additional bonus points for blowing up the warehouse and things like that. The Allies, well, they get points for every aircraft that's basically destroyed or shot down, and that if the ships remain intact. Well, the battle deck's in play. This is mainly, again, for aircraft predominantly and the events surrounding them. And for information, we're going to be using chance work, aircraft of World War II, for our statistics and data. We call this the Book of Armaments, and that gives us payloads and so much more. Battle action, well, let's get straight into it. There's a hive of activity at Andales. The Vasseveld is basically effectively unloading her cargo, mainly military cargoes. British infantry have disgorged and disembarked and are now marching towards the front lines and the enemy. At this point in time, we hear the heavy whirring of 333 Coastal Squadron, as it's become known, and that's led by an Me-110 pilot. The Me-110 sees a target of opportunity with the British in road column, dives, and although they make their reaction save and get off the road, several are caught in his gun sights and about 14 Tommies perish. At this point, the Ju-88 that isn't torpedo armed, the only aircraft, has made a sort of high bank and is now coming in behind the warehouse with its incendiary bombs. The torpedo bombers, they come straight over as the British unpin and head rather hastily towards the wood line and cover. Many of the British basically have to get off that road as the Me-110 has banked away and now attacks and strafes basically Viking, damaging her main anti-aircraft armament. The incendiary bomber, and we can see an incendiary bomb here, these are effectively kept in containers, and as they're dropped they effectively open up and produce a swathe of these small bombs which hit the warehouse and basically cause fires everywhere, pinning the Bofors gun and setting fire to both warehouses due to the wind. Now we get into the torpedo attack run with the squadron leader and the other torpedo bomber, Beckenbauer, who basically sunk Lulu in the last battle. He fires the commander's torpedo. Well, that deviated on impact. However, Beckenbauer's torpedo hits straight in the prow of the ship, and effectively she starts listing immediately, heavily damaged and taking on water. As a deck-driven Carter 109 appears, strafes again the poor Viking, and continues straight on towards where the Bofors is. The incendiary bomber basically drops its two 500 kilo bombs, and at this point the ship goes down. She's sinking, and there's some contestation between who got the kill. But in the meantime, what we see is the ME-109 again strafe the dockside, killing another 8 men and pinning the Bofors, as the ME-110 turns upon Polar and opens fire. At this point, the incendiary bomber basically opens fire on the merchantmen who've jumped off the ship, causing the first of our incidents. And there's a lot of crackle over the radio static as to what the hell is going on by the squadron commander. At this point, we see Her Majesty's ship, the Enterprise, arrive, the AA sloop, just in time basically to witness an explosion in the warehouse which kills another 8 more British Tommies. The ME-110 strafes again as the Beckenbauer launches his other torpedo, trying to hit effectively the Enterprise, but strikes Polar, and she goes down straight away, literally the whole front of the ship blown up, and she effectively sinks there and then. The poor crew, what's left of them, only 8 of them manage to get into the water with no life rafts, cause a problem for Enterprise because she's heading straight for the sea wall. She hasn't got time to drop boats. And then we see the arrival of the Gloucester Gladiator. She dives into the inferno which is below, catching the 109 on her tail, opens fire, but unfortunately misses. It's one opportunity as it banks and the 109 outturns it. The warehouse is a blaze of fire. There's carnage on the sea, and the ME-110, which has seen the Gloucester Gladiator, comes roaring in with its cannons, opens fire, gets 2 wonderful hits, and unfortunately the Gloucester Gladiator is just broken up into pieces, just as we see the sinking of the Wasserveld, who goes right to the bottom, now blocking the wharf totally. The 110 though doesn't escape the fury of the British, who's finally, the Bofors unpins, opens fire, hits it in the cockpit and blows the pilot completely to pieces. The plane explodes into flame and goes down, just as Beckenbauer again sees what he calls an armed trawler, open fires on Gunnarsen, who has 7 children, and slaughters the small fishing boat. We then see another deck card appear, which is the Condor mine layer, which has been sent in as a reserve to drop mines around the port, which happened a lot in Norway. But she's come too close, far too close, and the ferry battle that had come on with the Enterprise tries to attack, but gets shot down by Condor, and the Focke-Wulf Condor then gets hit by the Bofors in the rear and its twin machine guns, and basically the Condor goes down as well. Fortunately, the Enterprise has made a sharp turn just as the torpedo, which exploded, sending the poor polar men, finally erupts into flame. And what we then see is effectively the last shooting in this 6 minutes of intense fire, as the squadron leader puts on the last sort of shots into the poor Viking ship, and she goes down as well. So it's been intense, and as they return to base, the Germans have lost 2 aircraft, but they have managed to successfully destroy 3. They have blocked the harbour. It's been an incredibly effective bombing run. However, there are strong recriminations on the radio traffic as they go in. And as a postscript, they made their roll, and the Condor pilot's crew that had managed to effectively jump out are likely to be rescued effectively, as the Blom and Voss would come in and land and collect them. However, as I said, those recriminations are flying back at headquarters about the shooting of what was classified as civilian targets. There is much at stake, which, although the bravery of the pilots cannot be contested, the actions that were undertaken would appear to be unacceptable, and the squadron leader will be issuing a report to that effect. In the meantime, I would love you to continue to support us, and please stay tuned for far more from Norway. So it's over and out from me, and we'll be back very soon with more action, more drama, and I hope a lot more history.